Welcome to episode 2 of Eerie Confessions. Story 1. This story happened years ago when I was still working at 7-Eleven. I stood behind the counter, tired and bored, on my graveyard shift at the 7-Eleven. It was another mundane night at the convenience store. The only customers were the occasional late-night wanderers, looking for snacks or cigarettes. But little did I know, that night was about to take a chilling turn. The door chimed, signaling the entry of a new customer. He was tall, dressed in tattered clothing, and had a nervous demeanor. I greeted him with a polite smile as he began to wander the aisles. As he walked around, he whispered to himself, his words indecipherable. My unease grew as he spent more time in the store, not buying anything but constantly glancing my way. The creepy customer suddenly approached the counter, his face pale and eyes darting. His voice was trembling as he leaned in and whispered, "Give me all the cash from the register, and don't make a sound." My heart raced, and I fumbled to open the cash register. I handed him the money, and he grabbed it hastily, his hands trembling. Panic swept over me as I realized I was being robbed. Just as the thief turned to leave, the store's entrance chimed again. A burly man with a stern expression entered. Startled, the robber dropped the money and made a run for it. The burly man approached me, revealing a police badge. He was an off-duty cop who had a hunch that something was amiss when he saw the nervous man entering the store. He had come to check things out and intervene. After the robber's escape, the off-duty officer and I began to look over the money left behind. It was then that I noticed a strange package that had fallen from the robber's grasp and had gone unnoticed during the commotion. Curiosity got the better of us, and we carefully opened the package. To our horror, it contained what seemed like a small, ticking homemade bomb. Panic and disbelief washed over us as we realized the potential danger we had unknowingly been exposed to. The officer immediately called for backup, and soon, the bomb squad arrived. They evacuated the store and cordoned off the area. Time seemed to crawl as we waited for the experts to defuse the bomb. As the bomb squad carefully disarmed the device, the officer and I exchanged worried glances. It was surreal to think that a routine night at the 7-Eleven had nearly turned into a deadly disaster. With the bomb defused, the off-duty officer began to question me about the incident again. As we collectively tried to make sense of the night's events, I couldn't help but feel shaken by the close call. The officer shared a few words with me about the situation. Apparently, the bomb was planted, hoping to distract us while the robber makes his escape. If that officer hadn't been nearby and intervened, I can't imagine what would have happened to me. Was I lucky or unlucky to nearly be blasted into pieces? Story 2. That night, I stood in front of a bustling 7-Eleven. Its fluorescent lights cast a warm, welcoming glow. I had a sudden craving for a late-night snack and decided to make a quick pit stop. The store was abuzz with customers, and the familiar hum of activity surrounded me. As I entered the store, I was met with rows of snacks, drinks, and everyday essentials. The overhead speaker played a mellow tune, creating a soothing ambience. I lost myself in the variety of options, feeling comforted by the familiarity of 7-Eleven. At the checkout counter, the friendly cashier flashed me a warm smile as she rang up my purchases. The area was well lit and felt safe and inviting. I paid for my snacks and thanked her before making my way to the exit. As I approached the exit, a peculiar noise echoed from the back of the store. The lights flickered momentarily, and I turned to see if anyone else had noticed. The other customers, lost in their own worlds, seemed oblivious to the disturbance. Curiosity got the better of me, and I decided to investigate the source of the noise. I found the storeroom door slightly ajar, revealing darkness within. The store, once bustling, now felt eerie and empty. As I pushed the door open slowly, I saw a startling scene. Boxes were strewn about haphazardly, and to my disbelief, the cashier stood there, a shocked expression on her face. It was as though she had been caught in the middle of something she couldn't explain. The cashier, still visibly shaken, admitted that she had been trapped inside the storeroom by a prankster. As she spoke, the lights flickered once more, and the store seemed to regain its normalcy. The eerie atmosphere earlier must have just been my imagination, and I turned to leave. Just as I turned around, the lights suddenly went out, plunging the store into darkness. Panic set in as I fumbled for my phone to use its flashlight. The store that had seemed safe and ordinary moments ago now felt like an entirely different place. I could feel my heart thumping crazily hard and fast. Just when I felt my mind was about to go blank, the lights flickered back on, revealing a room full of customers, all sharing in laughter. Seeing this, I was stunned, and my mind immediately went blank. Even the cashier couldn't contain her giggles. Moments later, I managed to compose myself. It became clear that the entire episode, from the strange noise to the blackout, had been an elaborate, store-wide prank orchestrated for the late-night Halloween crowd. As I left the 7-Eleven, I couldn't help but feel a complicated mix of relief, spookiness, and annoyance. That eerie atmosphere and my racing heart are sensations I can still recall to this day. Story 3. It was a gloomy afternoon in the heart of the pandemic. I decided to make a quick run to the local 7-Eleven for some essentials. The store was nearly empty, with only a few customers scattered around, all wearing masks. As I entered, the air was thick with tension and the smell of disinfectant. I walked down the aisles, picking up items. Then, I heard it. At the counter, someone was arguing with the cashier about wearing a mask. It was a disheveled man in his 40s. The increased tension in the store could be felt. However, I chose to ignore the incident and continue getting my essentials. I finally made my way to the counter and placed my items on the conveyor belt. The cashier, a young woman with a mask covering her face, scanned my items. The man with the mask issue had moved on, and I was relieved until I noticed the distant look in the cashier's eyes. As she scanned my items, she mumbled something about not feeling well and the virus. There was a visible effort to appear friendly and composed. As she handed me my change, my heart sank as I realized something was wrong, but I couldn't say anything, not wanting to cause a scene. I quickly left, my mind racing. I returned home, my thoughts consumed by the cashier's possible infection. I'd heard horror stories about asymptomatic carriers. My imagination ran wild with worst-case scenarios. I decided to call the local health department to report my concerns. As I described the situation, the health official on the other end assured me they would look into it. Still, my fear grew. What if I had contracted the virus from her? The days that followed were filled with anxiety as I awaited a call from the health department. A week passed, and the call finally came. I was told that the cashier had tested positive for COVID-19, but they needed to contact me for contact tracing. My heart pounded as I braced for the worst. When the official asked about my symptoms, I realized I had been asymptomatic. To my surprise, they revealed that the cashier had contracted the virus from someone who had knowingly entered the store with COVID-19 symptoms. It was a deliberate act of recklessness. I was furious and frightened, but there was more to come. In the following days, the health department launched an investigation. They discovered that the person who had knowingly entered the store was a disgruntled ex-employee seeking revenge. They had tampered with the store's security cameras to avoid identification, leaving a trail of confusion. My sense of security was shattered. It was not the virus itself that had put me in danger but the malicious intent of a former employee. The realization that someone had plotted to infect innocent people sent shivers down my spine. The authorities were determined to find the person responsible. They reviewed the tampered security footage and cross-referenced it with employee records. The tension in the town escalated as the investigation unfolded. As days turned into weeks, they finally apprehended the ex-employee, who was charged with endangering public health and multiple other crimes. The relief that washed over the community was overwhelming. Justice was served, but the incident left a lasting mark. The 7-Eleven store increased security measures, and everyone became more vigilant. As I looked back on that day, I realized that the horror didn't just come from the virus itself but from the darkness within people, willing to go to extreme lengths to harm others during a time of crisis.